Hey, what's up, y'all? Welcome back to ASKnowlin, and today we're gonna be simplifying rational expressions. All right, let's get into it. First problems says write the rational expression in simplest form. Okay. Our first problem here is 15x squared divided by 10x. All right. So I want to rewrite it first. 15x squared divided by 10x. I'm going to go ahead and factor this 15 into two factors. Common factors, actually, that I know, 3 and 5. So 3 times 5 times, and I can break this x squared down into x times x, over 2 times 5, because that makes 10, times x. Now I can go ahead and simplify this. Things are gonna cancel out. 5's cancel out. X's cancel out. So I'm left with 3x on the top over 2. So my final answer is gonna be 3x divided by 2. Alright. Let's continue moving. This one says write the rational expression in simplest form. Okay. Once again, we have 3xy over xy plus x. So first thing, rewrite it, 3xy over xy plus x. Now here, when you're doing these type of problems, you want to find common factors on the top and the bottom. And what's common on the top and the bottom is an x. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to factor out an x on the top. And if I factor out an x on the top, that's going to leave me with 3y. Okay? And then I factor an x on the bottom. And when you factoring is kind of like the reverse of division. So it's kind of like dividing. So if I divide 3xy by x, the x's cancel out. That leaves me with 3y. That's how I get the 3y here. Now if I factor an x out on the bottom, let's see here. So xy divided by x, that'll just leave me with x. And x divided by x, that'll just leave me with 1. So this is going to be y plus 1. Now I can go ahead and simplify this and get rid of these x's. So my final answer will just be 3y over y plus 1. Final answer. Okay. There's those two problems again. Alright. Let's move on to the next two. Alright. Once again, it says write the rational expression in simplest form. We have 4y, minus 8y squared over 10y minus 5. With these problems, we want to find common factors that I can pull out of the top and common factors that I can pull out of the bottom. Now, on the top, I can pull out a 4y squared. That's the greatest common factor between those. Well, not squared, but just a 4y. So, real quick, if I divide 4y by 4y, that's going to equal 1. And if I divide 8y squared by 4y, that's going to leave me with 2y. So over here, rewrite our problem. 4y minus 8y squared over 10y minus 5. Rewrite that. That's if I pull out a 4y from there, that's going to leave me with 1. Then minus 2y over, alright, now on the bottom, the common factor here would be 5, so 10y divided by 5 would just give me 2y, and 5 divided by 5 would just give me 1. So that's going to give me 5 on the outside, parentheses 2y minus 1. Now, some of you are saying, oh, we can probably cancel this out. We can't exactly cancel this out yet because this is a positive 1, that's a negative 1, that's a negative 2y, and that's a positive 2y. So we can't cancel it out yet. What we can do is we can take a negative out of here, or distribute. If we take negative from here, that's going to make that positive. But if I take a negative from here, this is already positive, so it's going to be negative. So what's going to happen is, on the top, I'm still going to have 4y times 1 minus 2y. But on the bottom, now I'm going to pull out a negative, so that's going to become negative 5. And that's going to have to be, that's going to be negative 2y now. And negative times a negative is a positive, and 5 times 2 is 10, so that'll give me my 10y. And now this 1, if I pull the negative out of that, it's going to be positive. So now I have what I need to cancel out. I have a negative 2y, positive 1, and a positive 1. But for my people that can't really see it, I'm going to go ahead and rewrite it. Now that I rewrote it and it looks how I want it to look, go ahead and cancel those out. So we're just finally left with 4y over, or negative 4y over 5. Final answer. And just to recap, the negative, whenever you have a fraction and the number on the bottom is negative, you move that negative to the top and the whole fraction becomes negative. So negative 4y over 5. Final answer. Alright, let's go to this next one. We have x minus 5 over 10 minus 2x. So, once again, I'm going to go ahead and rewrite it. And we're going to be looking for a common factor. Well, there's nothing I can really do on the top, but on the bottom, these two have a common factor of 2. So 10 divided by 2 is 5. And I'm going to use that negative 2x. That's a negative 2x divided by 2. That's going to leave me with negative 1x. So on the bottom, the factor out of 2, we're going to be left with 5 minus 1x. Now once again, we've ran into the problem that we did before. This is really a positive 1x, and that's a negative 1x, and that's a negative 5, and that's a positive 5. So once again, we're going to have to factor out a negative 1, or a negative. So and since if we factor out a negative out of this, that's going to leave us with a negative 5. And if I factor out a negative out of this, that's going to leave me with a positive 1. So I'm going to have, and I'll rewrite this top as a factor, 1 times 1x minus 5 over 2 times, I say that's going to turn into a negative 5, and that's going to turn into a positive 1x. I want to go ahead and rewrite everything so that way it looks similar to this. So 1 times 1x minus 5, and 2 times, that's a positive 1x, that's a negative 5. Alright, now I can go ahead and simplify. When I do that, those are going to cancel out, so this is going to simply leave me with 1 over 2, and I'm done. Okay. Alright, let's move on to the next set of problems. Now this next one here, it says write the rational expression in simplest form. Okay, so automatically I see I have a difference of squares up here. Alright, in the difference of squares, all I need to do is figure out what the square root of each one of those is and write these as the factors of difference of squares. So rewrite this. Alright, my difference of squares is going to tell me I can do square root of y squared, which is equal to y, square root of 16, which is equal to plus 4 and negative 4. So when I factor out the top, that's going to be y plus 4 and y minus 4. And on the bottom, we just have y plus 4. Now we see that we have a common factor on the top and bottom. Those cancel out. My final answer is just going to be y minus 4. Y minus 4. Final answer. Alright, that wasn't so bad. Let's see here. Alright. We have x cubed plus 5x plus 5x squared plus 6x all over x squared minus 2. On the top, immediately, I noticed that all three of them have an x, so I can at least factor out an x on the top. So let's rewrite our problem. And like I said, on the top, I can go ahead and factor out an x. Now on the bottom, once again, I notice that this is a difference of squares. So on the side over here, square root of x squared is x. Square root of 4 is plus 2 minus 2. Okay, it's plus 2 minus 2. So on the bottom, I can at least go ahead and put x plus 2, x minus 2. And on the top, I'm going to go ahead and factor out an x. So that's going to leave me with x squared plus 5x plus 6. Okay? And just to show that I factor out an x, when you factor out, I told you, it's just like dividing. Alright? So those are all the terms that I got when I factored out an x. X squared, 5x, and 6. Okay, factoring out an x. Now I want to go ahead and factor this one right here. Factor this polynomial, x squared plus 5x plus 6. Now, when I factor this, if I come over here, I know that 6 has the factors of 1 and 6, and 2 and 3. And I want the ones that are going to give me 5, a positive 5. So if I know if I add those two, that'll give me 7. And if I subtract those two, that'll give me 5. If I add these two, those will give me 5. And if I subtract those two, they'll give me 1 in some type of way. Now, since this is a positive 6 and a positive 5, I'm going to go with these right here because I have to add here. In order to get 5 here, I had to subtract. So that means that one of these has to be negative, which would have made this 6 negative. But because the 6 is positive, that means that I have to add both of those. So I'm going to be using 2 and 3. And this is going to be x plus 2 and x plus 3 on the top. And on the bottom, we're still going to remain the same. X plus 2, x minus 2. And now we can go ahead and simplify. We see that we have a common factor on the top and the bottom. Get rid of it. The leftovers, x times x plus 3 over x minus 2. Final answer. Okay. Alright. Let's go ahead and move on to the next problem. X squared plus 8x minus 20, all that divided by x squared plus 11x plus 10. Alright, once again, we want to go ahead and factor these two polynomial expressions. When I factor, well, first of all, let's rewrite it. X squared plus 8x minus 20 over x squared plus 11x plus 10. Alright, so remember in factoring, we want to first go ahead and factor this negative 20. Okay? 1 and 20, 2 and 10, 4 and 5. If I add these, that'll give me 21. If I subtract, that'll give me 19. If I add these, that'll give me 12. If I subtract, that'll give me 8. If I add these, that'll give me 9. Subtract, that'll give me 1. Alright, well, I want 20, but I want the middle term to be 8. So I'm going to use my 10 and my 2. And I know, because they both, when I combine them in some type of way, that gives me 8. So one of them has to be negative and one has to be positive. Now, since this middle term is positive, that tells me that my bigger number has to be positive. So we're going to have a positive 10 and a negative 2 on the top. So x minus 2 and x plus 10. There's my negative 2. There's my positive 10. Now I'm going to do the same thing for the bottom. Factors of 10 that make 11. So 1 and 10, 2 and 5. If I add those, that makes 11. If I subtract, that makes 9. Add those, that makes 7. Subtract, that makes 3. We're going to use 1 and 10 because obviously those make 11. Now everything here is positive, so all of these are going to be positive. So that's going to be x plus 1 times x plus 10. And now we can go ahead and get rid of our common factors. We see that we both have x plus 10 on the top and the bottom. So that's going to be x minus 2 over x minus 1. And it doesn't matter if you write it with the parentheses or without, as long as your final answer looks like this. Okay? Alright, let's move on to the next problem. We have x squared minus 9 over x cubed plus x squared minus 9x minus 9. Now, on the top, we have a difference of squares, and on the bottom, we're going to factor by grouping on the bottom. And I'll show you what that means in a moment. So, rewrite it. X squared over that minus 9 over all of this. X cubed minus x squared minus 9x minus 9. Alright, difference of squares. Remember, when we're doing difference of squares, we're going to take the square root. So that's x plus 3 minus 3. So on the top over here, we're going to have x plus 3, x minus 3. And on the bottom here, factor by grouping, which means I'm going to factor these two, x cubed minus x squared, and then we're going to have minus 9x plus 9. Now the reason this changed to a plus sign here was because I factored out that negative, okay? And if I distribute it back, that'd be negative 9x. And then if I distribute it back here, that'd be negative 9. Bow. So now I'm going to go ahead and factor the O's too. I can factor out an x squared out of here. That's the lowest, your greatest common factor can't be higher than your lowest term. And then here, this is x squared. So if you just want to check it out real quick, that's going to give me x. And that's going to give me 1. Okay. So x squared, that's going to leave me with x minus 1. And over here on the bottom, plus, I can factor out a 9 out of those two. So 9x, that's going to leave me with x. 9 divided by 9, that's going to leave me with 1. Alright? So, once again, that's going to be, minus 9. This should be a minus sign. 9. There we go. And then x minus 1. Okay? And we should be good with that right there. Alright. Oh, let me see here. I made a mistake. Alright. This should be a negative 9 right here and a plus 1. Did I make a mistake here? Oh, no, I didn't. Plus 1. There we go. Alright. Now, we still don't have our grouping like we want. So, what we need to do here is factor out negative 9. Factor out Alright, so let's keep moving. Now what we want to go ahead and do here next, we want to have both of these to look alike. Okay, so we gotta figure out what we need to do to make that happen. Let's see here. We factor out x squared, so that left us with x and 1. And then right here, that's a minus 9. If we take the minus 9 out, that'll be a plus 1. So if we made that a positive 9, let's see here, we can rewrite this as x plus 3 on the top, x minus 3. And then on the bottom, we're gonna rewrite this, and what we're gonna do here, let's see, we got a negative 9x here and a negative 9 here. If we pull out a positive 9, that will give us a, if we put out a positive 9, that would give us negative, but we still need to make that still needs to be a negative 9x right there. So let's see over here. Negative 9x minus 9. If we take out a 9x, that'll be negative x minus 1. And if we take out a negative 9, that'll be x plus 1. So there's nothing we can really do here. Let's see. Yeah. Oh, alright folks, I see what I did. I rewrote my problem incorrectly. Alright, there's a plus sign, and that needs to be a plus sign. So if that's a plus sign, that should be a plus sign. Now, that should be a plus sign. Alright, so we're back on track. Here we go. Let's keep that as x squared. We're just going to rewrite the bottom real quick. Minus 9 times x plus 1. Alright, so we're back on track, folks. ASKnowlin made a mistake. There's a plus sign. I didn't have it there at first. I put it there now. So we're back to golden. Now, since this repeats, we can write this one time. We can write that as one factor. And what we're going to end up doing is going to be x plus 3 times x minus 3 over, and now this is going to be x plus 1 times x squared minus 9. What I did was I took these two and I put those right here. Since this showed twice, we only had to write that once, because really this is just a fancy form of distribution. Now, once again, I have difference of squares on the bottom, so I'm going to have to go ahead and factor that again. And just like it was on the top, is going to be just like it is on the bottom. Because we had x squared minus 9 on the top at first, and it ended up being x plus 3x minus 3, so that's what we're going to write on the bottom. Alright, now that we see that we have everything factored, we can get rid of the x plus 3, we can get rid of the x minus 3. And since there's nothing left on top, we have to put a 1 there, so our final answer would be 1 over x plus 1. Alright. I apologize about that. We got a little stuck there, but, you know, we found our mistake and we kept it moving. Persistence was the key here. Alright. Let's move on to our next set of problems. Alright. And this seems to be the last one. Yep, the last problem. Here we go. We have y cubed minus 2y squared minus 3y, all that over y cubed plus 1. Now, immediately I notice that I have a cube. I'm trying to find the right term, folks. Just hold tight with me. It's a sum of cubes. And with the sum of cubes, we're going to have a special factorization there, alright? The sum of 2 cubes. So, let's see on the top here, we can go ahead, we all see that we can factor out a y on the top. So if I factor out a y on the top, y cubed divided by y is y squared. Negative 2y squared divided by y is negative 2y. And negative 3y divided by y is just negative 3. So, let's rewrite everything. That's going to simply give us so far. Take the y's out, we're left with y squared, negative 2y, negative 3, okay? And on the bottom, we still have y cubed plus 1. Now we need to go ahead and figure out what our, when we look up our definition for sum of 2 cubes, that's what this is. So the sum of 2 cubes is as follows. If we have, for instance, u to the third power plus v to the third power, that's a sum of 2 cubes. When we factor it, the factor is going to look like u plus v times u squared minus uv plus v squared. Now, we need to figure out what u and v are going to be. Well, our u cubed is the same thing as our y cubed, and our v cubed is the same thing as our 1. So, immediately I want to go ahead and cube root of y cubed, which is y. And then I do the cube root of 1, which is 1. So y is going to be the u, or u is going to be y, and v is going to be 1, and we just fill it into our formula. So if I fill that into my formula correctly, on the bottom I should have, this is going to be my, y is going to be u, and v is going to be 1. So we're going to have y plus 1 times y squared minus uv, which is u times v, in our case is y times 1, which is just y, okay, plus v squared, which is 1, and 1 squared is just 1, so that's going to be plus 1 on the bottom. And on the top we're still going to have y, and then we're going to have y squared minus 2y minus 3. Okay? Alright, so let's keep it moving, going down the page. And let me separate some of this for us so we don't get anything confused here. Alright, so we come over here. Now, we can factor this polynomial, and we should be able to factor this polynomial if I'm not mistaken. Let's see here. This one cannot be factored, okay? And this one here, we can factor this. Now we need to go back to doing our factoring thing. 1 and 3, if we add them together, that gives us 4. If we subtract, it gives us 2. But we're going to use the one with 2. So that's going to give us y. And then we're going to have y. Let's see here. Minus, the 3 has to be negative in order to get a negative 2. So negative 3, positive 1. So we're going to have y minus 3 times y plus 1, and that'll give us y squared minus 2y minus 3. And on the bottom, we're going to go ahead and keep our factors. So this is going to give us y plus 1, and then y squared minus y plus 1. Remember, this can't be factored. We have a common factor on the top and bottom, y plus 1. So that's on the top, it's going to be left with y times y minus 3 over y squared minus y plus 1. Final answer. Okay? And that's it for today. Alright? Hope you all got something out of this. We had a little hiccup in the middle of it, but we got through it. We fought through it. Let me know how I did, if I did alright. Let me know if I did bad. Let me know. I'm always trying to improve. And once again, I love y'all, and I'll see y'all later.